Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Perkins Custom Swim Bait YouTube channel. Appreciate everyone taking some time to watch today's episode. In today's episode, my key topic here that I want to talk about, discuss, and then we're also going to break off and do a map study, kind of go through some of the visualizations as to what to look for on different bodies of water, is where to locate and how to find giant bass locations. That is the big key question that I think all of us, including myself, are constantly asking ourselves. How do I catch a bigger than normal, bigger than average fish for my body of water? So before we even kick into the map study, I do want to highlight really two key things that I have utilized personally to try to help myself actually learn and change my mindset as far as how to find bigger bass. So those two things are different books. Okay. And I know that sounds like, oh, here we go. Here's a book, not the most exciting thing. I've got to, read these long books as to what's going on. But honestly, they're very quick reads. They're very entertaining. And if you, like myself, are just kind of chomping at the bit, trying to figure out how to catch a bigger than normal fish, these are, very entertaining reads. So the first one, and definitely probably the most staple book reading in looking for big fish, is kind of like, as the name suggests, In Pursuit of Giant Bass by Bill Murphy. This book, Bill Murphy, goes through detail. I mean, as you can kind of tell, it's a thick book. This is the paperback. I think I got this book on lunkercity.com. I think I got it for maybe like $20 or something like that. It's just an outstanding read to be able to reference and to go back on, be able to look, be able to dive into all these different scenarios that Bill kind of documents in here. He goes through everything from moon phase to bait selection. But the biggest thing that I find so useful within that book is how he details different seasonal patterns and the locations to target those giant bass using those specific locations. Phenomenal read. If you ever get a chance, this is a great reference point, especially for different bodies of water. Second book is The Big Bass Zone, and this one is written by Bill Siemantel. I think that is how you say Bill's last name. But once again, this was actually the first book that I got. I got the In Pursuit of Giant Bass later, but this was the first one that I got. Now, the difference between these two books is they both detail locations, where to look for giant bass, how to find giant bass. The difference here is this book, in a lot of ways, a lot of the techniques here predate the swim bait era. So you can use the information here, because he has crankbaits, he has worms, he has things like that in here. You can utilize that information and kind of adapt it into the swim bait genre. But in Bill's book, it really details the big bait. It details big wakes, the big soft baits. Glide baits not really made a huge impact at this point when it was written, but you can still adapt it from there. But once again, if you read both of those texts, they are so similar in where you are looking for giant bass. And then lastly, of course, there's always the last reference, and that's YouTube itself. So, and that's going to be from everyone and anyone that gives their opinion as to how to find giant bass. So, yeah, we'll cut that. All right. So let's hop on to the computer. I'm going to switch the camera around to where you can kind of get to see this. We're going to utilize two softwares. I think most everyone in the fishing community is familiar with these. But if you're new, if you're a beginner, these two softwares are Navionics, and the second software is Google Earth. So we're going to use those two in, sync with each other, in pair, to be able to look at different structures on the lakes that we might be able to target giant bass. I'm going to try to pull this up on a lake that I have not been to in a long period of time. Even to this date, it's been 5+ years since I've been to these bodies of water. We might pull up another lake that I have never been to and some of the key areas that I would look to. And then maybe we will do one more lake of a lake that I would really hope to get to fish one day. So let's dive right in. We're just going to kind of take a real quick high-level view. But, this is going to be a video to where adapt a lot of these thoughts and principles to each of your bodies of water, because this is kind of how my thought process when I'm going to a new body of water, or when I'm going to the body of water that I fish a lot and I want to start breaking down a different section of the lake. If I really want to hone in a new area on that lake, the first thing that I do before going out that Saturday morning or, day I have off or something like that, is I'll hop on Navionics and Google Earth and kind of do a pre-fish in my mind as to, okay, I need to go here and let's start here, then we'll go here, kind of thinking about developing your spot A, spot B, spot C, so on and so forth, that you're kind of wanting to work through during the day. But also be thinking about it from the standpoint, okay, we're getting ready to go into full-blown summer right now. So be thinking, okay, I've got recreational pontoons, jet skis, all kinds of different things like that going to be going on during the lake. So we're going to get, mud lines are going to get created. I'm going to get, tomorrow the weather's going to change. I'm going to have a wind pushing in, a west wind coming in. Okay, so that means I need to fish these kind of banks. So kind of be thinking about that, because all of those conditions right like that are going to still play a part in this. But what I really want to highlight here are some of the key features in structure versus cover that I personally like to look for, and that things that I think are also very, 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 very well highlighted in both of these books as to some of the key areas that big giant bass tend to live on. And then, please down in the comment section, list some of the common structures. You don't have to give lakes away, of course, but some of the top structures that you yourself like to fish for giant bass. Is it points, humps, channel swing banks, island tops, you name it? Just something to list down in the comment. I love to read them. I know a lot of our community here that we're building and we're growing would love to read those too, because everyone lives on a different body of water. Everyone has different fish. So I'd love to get to hear it, and we will see how that goes. But all right, let's hop on the computer and let's get started. All right, everyone. So we've moved over to the computer, and like I was saying, you're only going to need two different softwares to do this. This one is just on my standard Google Chrome browser, and you'll just go up here and in the search bar type in navionics.com. Come over to viewers and hit chart viewer. And then as it's loading, you'll kind of get to see it will load everything up. But specifically, I want to come in here and we're going to go to Cherokee Lake. This is a lake that I have been to about 5 to 6 years ago. I actually have not been to Cherokee any more recently. But for anyone that watches that might keep up with the Bassmaster Elite Trail, they did make a stop on Cherokee a few years back, and the elites fished there. They've also had several opens and different BFL tournaments that get fished on Cherokee year over year. So hopping right into it, some of the key areas that I'm going to look at, and we're not going to break down this entire lake. This is a very large lake, so I'm going to hit some of the high spots that I would look for to be able to fish for a giant bass. Now, as you kind of zoom in, you see a lot of the topographic maps start coming into play. So, if we are fishing down at the dam in this general area, and let's just say that our boat does not have a ton of gas in it, so we don't want to make a huge run. So, let me see here real quick. You can kind of tell down along the dam, there is a huge boat launch. So we're just going to assume that we're going to put in at the boat launch at the dam and just kind of fish around this area. So some of the key areas that I'm going to be looking for is, number one thing that I want to see is, where is my river channel? Where is my historical river channel that's going to pull current through that body of water? Because once I know basically where the historic river channel is, and then in conjunction with that is, where are all of these little coves and branches, where is their river channel that is flowing into the main channel here? That is the big thing that I'm wanting to see, because as we're kind of going through, you know, a lot of these places that I'm going to look for with giant bass is going to be relative to deep water. That is a very, very key thing, that with the exception of the spawn, I personally believe that most big bass spend a majority of their time in deeper water. Now, that does not necessarily mean that they are on the bottom in deeper water. I just think that they have a very strong preference to be near the vicinity of deep water. So that is one of the biggest key things that I'm going to be looking for. So let's just kind of take a look real quick at Oak Creek, and we're just going to kind of really quickly break this little section down. So if I were going to go back here in the spring, you know, naturally you would have these spawning areas that you could go back here and look for the different spawning bass. Okay, well, as those fish get finished spawning, they're going to make their way back out into these deeper water areas. So the first thing that I'm looking for is, where are these fish going to be stopping along the way and feeding up on the way out? Okay, so here is the key thing that I'm looking for. Now, as we zoom in here again, you can see here there's something called Black Oak Marina. That is this marina that kind of is all right through here. Now, for me personally, I would fish these key areas here, leaving Oak Creek with a glide bait around these marina docks. All of them. We have deep water, which is kind of outlined in this white color. And then we have, let's just call this the medium deep, kind of in the light blue. So as you can kind of tell, and then up here we've kind of in this bright blue, ultra shallow, or getting very shallow. So as you can kind of tell, what I'm looking at is, I've found deep water access. I found really deep water. This is 70 to 80 feet deep, which deep's relative depending upon your body of water. But this is going to be some of the key areas that I'm going to fish as these fish are coming out of the spawn and going into like summer. Okay, but this is something that I'm going to try year round, because these boat docks, because you do have this amount of water that comes out of this little cove here, is going to be able to hold certain amount of fish. This is definitely an area I would fish. Here's another one. You have historic road beds, submerged bridges. Okay, but specifically, let's keep on looking. The other key thing is, if you can see this, this is historically where that river channel runs. This is probably, I don't know if this boat dock will hold fish, but honestly, this is one boat dock that I would definitely check. The reason being is, you can see right here, there is a fork of the historical old road bed that flows underneath this marina. So as bait and everything else that kind of goes through this little area, there's this fork. This marina, in my opinion, would be a prime spot for a big bass to stay, just because of, in a lot of ways, you've got a lot of food sources coming to it. Now, when it comes to different structure, and Cherokee has a lot of different structure, but one of the key things that I personally like to fish a lot is channel swing banks. So where that river channel runs up to the actual bank, and it creates what is kind of like a bluff or a cliff. As you can kind of tell on this topographic map, these lines are extremely close together. That is a lot of what is showing you there, is that kind of cliff facing. So your key areas on these channel swing banks are typically around right here, and then probably around right here if I'm fishing this portion of the channel swing. The reason being is, as you can tell, this channel kind of juts out and turns towards the right, and also comes out and is going back up towards Oak Creek. So it's coming out of Oak Creek and it swings in, and it's going to hit that channel right here, or that bank right here. And likewise, it's going to come on down and it's going to start leaving around right here. Now here you have like a historic old point, but now for me personally, I really don't like fishing at that kind of depth, just because it can do really some damage to fish if you end up, getting that in the wrong spot, having to pull them out of such deep water. So let's just kind of look around a little bit more. Points are another key one. This would definitely be an area that I would be very interested in. Here's a hump. As you can kind of tell, this hump is shallow on top, shallower, and this river channel is coming by it, coming out of this little creek here. So that would definitely be a hump that I would check. Humps are another very prime area for big bass to sit. So as we zoom out, the key thing to look at is, if we're looking at the main lake, you can kind of follow this pink line as to where the main river channel runs. Okay, so right here, like we had just discussed about a channel swing bank, this is a prime channel swing bank that right here, where that red dot is, coming down to about right here, are going to be two of my prime areas that I would definitely fish. Now, they may not hold tons of fish, but we're not looking for tons of fish. We're trying to find a true giant. Now, let's kind of hop on up here. Here is another area that I think looks fantastic. If you'll notice with this is almost like it's an underwater hump, but because it's such a high spot, you can see as to how tight this river channel is kind of beaten up to it. That is a prime area to check, that kind of area. As you can tell, I fish a lot of river channels. This lake has points in it, as you can kind of tell. Here, different points. Here's a point. Once again, another channel swing. Another really nice channel swing bank, prime area to check. So I would also probably check this area really heavily. Reason being, when I look at this, you can see how this point juts out. So I'm trying to get the best view for you. But as you see, this point juts out. This is the main river channel. This point juts out into a smaller creek channel separating that. You've got this kind of a funnel point here as to where you could probably get a pretty good fish off of that. All right. Now that is definitely a good spot. Looking at this, this is definitely a point that I would want to fish from different angles, different areas. As you can kind of tell, this point sticks way out and it butts into the main river channel, and it separates a pretty good spawning creek arm. There is a lot of structure around Cherokee in the form of creeks, river bends, all that kind of stuff. And it really is a kind of pick your poison kind of area. You can go fish whatever kind of thing that you like. Now, depending on what time of year it is, depends on how deep you're going to have to go for some of these fish. But the key thing that I want you to keep in the back of your mind is deep water access. You want that fish to feel safe. So that's why I highlight channel swing banks so much. That's also why I'm looking at channel swing banks as areas that swing out. That is the key area on a channel swing. If I had to look at this channel swing right here, this whole bank is a channel swing if you really look at how tight these lines are. That's why they get so dark and nearly black as it swings. So, but my prime location is going to be about right through here. This general area, honestly, this is a prime area in my opinion. The reason being is, look how shallow it gets right here. That bass, if there is a giant bass that were to live right on this little section of basically a ledge, you know, you can think of this underwater channel swing as a ledge. This bass could live right here on this channel swing, and then it just move right up, spawn, and be back on its ledge. And that is going to have all kinds of a food source coming down through it. Now, there are some side notes with this in the sense of like some of your offshore kind of structure or more offshore kind of structure. If you do have like the striped bass, which Cherokee does, you have to be kind of careful as to how much you may end up, wanting to fish offshore, because those striper can sometimes push up really shallow too. As you can tell, right here is another point that I would probably check. It's really adjacent to that river channel. I'd probably actually fish this point and then do this entire area right through here all the way down to this point, maybe even all the way. That's one thing that if you get to see me out on the water or anything like that, see me fish, is typically I'll drop the trolling motor and I will cover quite a bit of water just with the trolling motor fishing. I was looking to see if we had any major like pinch points. Pinch points are also a really key and prime area to look for. So we won't go any farther up Cherokee. As you can kind of tell, it's a very long lake. But the one thing, that's kind of a pinch point. But as you can tell, there is so much offshore structure, it's very difficult to actually say that you want to go one place or another because there's just so much to check out. But the key things, points, underwater humps, island tops, ditches, drains, a saddle is also a very prime area. If you'll look right here, this is a saddle. This little section right here, you'll see that it actually gets a little bit shallower, drops down, goes back up, kind of gets a little bit shallower right there. Those are the prime areas that I'm going to look for when looking for big bass. I'm not going to be fishing a ton of this kind of open water. I might look at this, but to me, this is not probably an area that I would spend a lot of time at personally, just because I tend to look at the main body off the main river channel. But as you can tell, this is a giant creek if you really look at it from that standpoint. The whole thing looks like a giant cove, really, because it's got several creeks that feed it. You can see the historical creek channels that just kind of branch in. All these different channels. And if I were going to fish this, because of the depth, it's really hard for me to judge. I'd probably start with right here, fish that point, and I'd probably throw something like a Huddleston and fish it uphill if it were during the winter. And if it were during the summer, you're going to probably be having to go deep, so something like maybe a Baca burrito or some sort of deep swim bait, maybe like a trash fish, but hitting all of these different little points, sections as it comes out. And that's really what you're going to have to kind of play, is the point and the channel on this end. It's not as key features that I would personally look for. It's not to say there's not a giant that lives there. I'm sure there's at least a handful of fish there that are really nice fish. But when you look at that spot compared to this spot, in my opinion, has the big three, or what I would consider, if you start looking at pieces of structure in a point system, okay, is it a point? Give it 1 point. Okay, does that point line up with the channel swing? Give it 2 points. Does that channel swing veer off of the point at the point? Give it another point, because that's giving you, you've got the channel swing that swings in on this point. You have a channel swing bank that stays right through it, and then it's a point which automatically is jutting out into the water. So it's really building you this case as to how you can kind of set up different pieces of structure that you want to fish in a day and say that it's a high percentage area. All right, so that's Cherokee. I said that we'd try to do some other lakes, and we haven't even gotten into Google Earth, so we might actually have to make Google Earth a separate session completely. Let's go over, what do you think? Let's go to, is it Missouri and Table Rock? Let's see. There's Bull Shoals, there's Table Rock. Now, I'm going to preface this at the beginning of this segment. I have never fished Table Rock, ever. To be honest with you, I don't know if I will ever get the opportunity to fish Table Rock. So this is me talking to you about Table Rock based upon some of the key areas that I would look for. But honestly, by the look of this, there are a lot of really, really nice areas on Table Rock that I personally really like the looks of. All right, so I'm actually just kind of trying to find where the dam is at. Oh, right here, Table Rock Dam. Okay, so now if it were me and I'm looking at Table Rock, some of the key areas that I'm going to look at, I will typically start around the dam on any lake, just because that is a key area that I want to look for, because typically around the dam I've got the deepest water. Now, wow, okay, so this is some really, really nice areas. Definitely, I mean, instantly, I can tell you, yeah, that's even got a little fish on it. Yeah, that I would be fishing right through here, this whole area. I would probably really spend a lot of time in this particular creek area. Like I said, with our little point section. our little point numbering system of an area. We have a point, we've got a channel swing. We've just got some really, really nice areas here. I'm looking for any sort of like major, this would definitely be an area to check out. It'd be this point. You can kind of see as to how it juts in next to this river channel. Now, the bass may not be super, super deep in this area, so it'd actually have to be really worthwhile to be able to see exactly if that's going to be something that proves to be very beneficial. But with everything, you know that this is just my opinion as far as these locations. You're the angler that lives on Table Rock, perhaps, so you would know best. So definitely I would check a lot of these boat docks during the summer months as they're leaving the spawn, as long as they're surrounding deep water. But once again, that is one of the biggest things with myself. I do try to favor deeper water. I look for deep water, trying to find that. But, all right, let's go back up here. There's the dam. Now, there is another piece of structure that I've really not hinted on a whole lot, and that is simply because sometimes these can be very unique in their way to fish, and that's flats. Big, expansive flats. And the reason I kind of mention the flats is, in my opinion, a flat is very challenging for me to fish. And that just comes with my personal experience. And I don't have as much, I don't have as much experience having great success fishing flats. You know, I've caught fish on flats, but I've never caught giants on flats. Like, these are some that I would consider a little bit more of a flatter style bank. You know, you've got your, well, it's not a huge flat. This one might be a little bit better of an example. That's more so of a point. What you are looking for are these topographic lines that are kind of a little bit more sparsed out, a little bit more spread out. Let's see right through here. And flats look different on different lakes. This is a little bit better of an example of the bigger flat. That's actually probably the best example so far. That's pretty deep of a flat, but it is still one. They're just areas that I don't have as much confidence in personally. I found that sometimes where the flat will roll off into deeper water is oftentimes the best portion of the flat. So when you're looking at this, and this is similar to my video where you saw me catch the Huddleston fish, you'll notice this giant flat. I mean, and it's pretty substantial because you can see the channel swing kind of comes up right through here, goes around. The area that I would be intrigued with is definitely the channel swing side, but you can fish the flat side too. The difference is that where I'm going to be fishing it is probably very similar to kind of how it is with the channel swing. I want the section where it starts to roll around, because that means that bait is going to have to be, it's going to create a pinch point basically. You're creating a pinch point between the flat and the channel swing, and you're looking for that area as to where it swings up against the flat and against the channel swing. If you're looking at that from a pinch point perspective, all of that bait has to go through that section. So that giant bass is liable to sit on either one of those areas. So in this example, you could have a good amount of fishing in this general area. And I'm not really meaning the channel swing in this situation, but mainly the flat, looking in this general area for those fish or the big fish, and then kind of be going on, down, and through. So I would definitely check that point, just because it's the point and you've got a separation, and then you've got this section right here, and this is also kind of a flat. So this is a channel swing that rows into this kind of flat, and then the channel goes in and it comes around. This is the section that I would think would be the most highly likely to carry that giant bass. This area, and then right through here. So what you're looking for, if you'll notice, is that I've picked every area that basically has the channel swing buttoning up and where it is leaving. All right. So we're at a pretty good amount of time in the video, and I want to do one more, because this is personally a lake that I would love to get to fish. And one day I may get to, hopefully. All right, let's go to Lake Fork, down in Texas. All right. So it looks like here is the dam. Let's see here. I would definitely say this point is definitely something to check out. This whole point. That is a very, very prime area that I think would be a great one. Yeah, I definitely would check that out. I would also check this point out that juts out. It's just a lot of really nice area on Lake Fork. And then kind of going back into these little creeks, going through these points. But if I were to look at this, and this is something that I've heard a lot of different anglers that are considered, that I consider big bass anglers, look for, is what is the most obvious structure. If you looked at this map and you would say that I would expect a big bass to live there, that is why I chose that point right here. I would probably check this section right here, this point, because the bait is going to come through there, and then by the bait coming through there, the bass have opportunities to feed. And from the way it looks like, this is the river channel, this pink line, and that comes right over our key point. Okay, so another area, this area would be a prime area to check. And I would probably check this one. As you can tell, there's two separate creek channels that butt up against this with a giant point that sticks out. Looks like a great area. This section right here along this little island would definitely be a good one to check. So, as you can kind of tell, this is my thought process when I go looking at these topographical maps, because each different map is going to hide something for you. And then what I would do from here is I'll go back and I'll be looking at my Google Earth. And within Google Earth, let me show you Google Earth really quickly. You have to use the Google Earth Pro. So I have this preset up on like Cherokee Lake. But what you can do is you can hit this little clock. You can hit this little clock here at the top, select that, and what it allows you to do is go through time and look at different pictures as to the lakes. Now, this lake being Cherokee, you get to see it when it goes down and when they've dropped the water levels. And that helps greatly being able to tell what might be in the water, might be out of the water. So it looks like our best one is actually going to be like right here in November. But you can kind of scroll up through here and you start seeing all those little island tops that we looked at. So there is something that you can play with. Once you find your key structures on Navionics, go on to Google Earth or download the Google Earth Pro. That's what this particular version is. And select that little clock once you've got it downloaded and really, really deep dive into those areas and see if they still look as prime locations after you've kind of looked through time, and make sure that that's what you're looking to fish for. Thank you again for watching today's video. I really appreciate it, and I hope that you got a lot of good information out of this that you can take to your personal body of water and try to apply these same tactics as to looking for that next giant bass. And you know, if any of these prove to be useful and you've had some success, you know, definitely send a comment, send a message. I'd love to share and be ecstatic with you over your success story in catching this new fish of a lifetime. But I appreciate everyone watching. Please, if you've enjoyed this video, hit a thumbs up. Please hit that little subscribe button and notification bell. That gives you details on any new videos that come out. My schedule is that I put out a new video every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So that's when you can be on the lookout for some new videos. And, you know, as the channel name kind of hints at, Perkins Custom Swim Baits, if you have any interest in any of the baits that I make, please feel free to reach out to me in the email down below, or you can reach out to me on Facebook or Instagram. Also, links to that down below. So, thanks everyone for watching. Really appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next video.